Sometimes you want to read a really, really good book, but you don't have a lot of time. This video is going to present to you 7 books that you could read in a single day, in a single setting. Most of them are less than 250 pages. I think one is like 125 pages. And these are really, really good books. I combed through my shelves and I looked for everything that was like this. And then if it was something that I would recommend to a very, very good friend as something to spend your time with, something that could help you, I don't know, see the world a little differently, see yourself a little differently, or maybe just enjoy really great language. So I'm going to present these. I'm going to move pretty quickly through the 7, but first I wanted to invite you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. In a comment, you'd let me know if there's a book that is quite short. Maybe I haven't read it, or maybe I have read it, and I could share with you my experience in reading that book. Without further ado, here we go. This is just the stack. This is the order that they're in. The first one, Zadie Smith's Intimations. Zadie Smith is a writer that I really hold in very, very high regard, particularly for her persona. You know, is very generous and very empathetic. She writes from the position of someone who has experienced and thought deeply about what life has to offer. This particular book is her reflections on the pandemic. So early in the pandemic, she started writing. She found herself in a place of extraordinary privilege because she could sequester herself in her apartment, and other people had to go to work. And so it's fun to like sample the feelings that we had, and she was very helpful in processing those feelings for us in this very short book of essays. The next book I will present, Thomas Nagel is a Philosopher, and this is a book I've read like over and over several times. It asks really big questions, but it's suitable for people who don't have a lot of background in philosophy. So it's not like welcome to philosophy, here's Hegel. You know, it's like chapter 2, how do we know anything? Chapter 9, death. You know, so the kind of things that philosophers think about, but it's presented with language that is not in any way designed to confuse. There's great clarity in the way that Dr. Nagel explores these ideas. It's a fantastic book. I would recommend it, especially for younger. Well, no, I'm 44. I've read it many times. You don't have to be young to read it, but if you are young, you could read it, and you would definitely benefit from it. The next book I'd like to talk about, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, Nobel Prize winning Colombian, brilliant writer. This is a great way to taste the world of magical realism and to taste a world that is, it's like the Latino version, the Latin American version, the Colombian version of what here we have in the United States. We have the wild, wild West, you know, with its own rules and social structures and philosophies and its own version of right and wrong, which is not like a recipe for living a good life, but it is a very entertaining world to visit. And that's the world that we have in Chronicle of a Death Foretold. We learn very early, the first sentence we learn. I'll just read the first sentence because of all the writers of first sentences, Gabriel Garcia Marquez is really like the most quotable, the most rereadable of those first sentences. On the day they were going to kill him, Santiago Nassar got up at 5:30 in the morning to wait for the boat the bishop was coming on. So we learn immediately where Santiago is going, how he gets there, what it means to the community, what it means to his family, and who he is and why it happens is the painting of this world, the wild, wild west of Colombia that maybe probably never existed, at least not the way that it's expressed here. But just like the wild, wild west in the United States, it gives us a way to explore some very deep truths about values, masculinity, femininity, family, religion. Very powerful work. Something that I have never had anyone that I suggest read this spend 10 minutes with it and then not finish it. This is Ariel Dorfman's Death and the Maiden, and it is not for the faint of heart. It is a extremely disturbing play. So if you haven't read a play in a while and you want to read something that's going to make you engage, it's going to make you engage. Death and the Maiden is a great choice. It's powerful, it's beautiful, and like Haruki Murakami does, it infuses music and literature in a way that is powerful, evocative. Certainly for this work, disturbing. And if you do read it, or if you have read it, I always love to hear people think, and I always like to think myself about the ending. What does that mean? What is Ariel Dorfman doing to his audience when he chooses to end a play the way he ended Death and the Maiden? I've got 3 more. If you are someone who has spent any time on this channel, you know that Wisława Szymborska is a writer that I hold very, very close to my heart. This particular work is Miracle Fair, and you can read the collected works in MAP is the name of the collected works, and that has every poem that she ever published. But this is a curated set of poems that you can certainly read in a rainy afternoon if you want to think deeply about what human beings are, where we come from, where do we go, the perspectives that she offers the reader in this book of poetry. I would absolutely love to spend time thinking about her work and sharing those thoughts with you if you're interested. So let me know in a comment if you've never heard of Wisława Szymborska. She's a Polish poet. She is a Nobel Prize winner, and she is, I would argue, one of the most important voices, certainly the most important voice to come from Europe in the 20th century, definitely in the realm of poetry, but maybe also in the realm of philosophy. And her work it's truly, truly remarkable. So I love to think about her and her poems and the unique perspectives that they offer. Here's a short Hemingway. If you've never read Hemingway before, this is In Our Time, and it's a great first experience with Hemingway. You can see his style, his narrative style, the way that he is so stingy with his description of events, and yet you can feel there's tension, and there's a realism to his exploration of motivation and relationships that is pretty valuable, and I think he's probably at the peak of his powers in this collection here, which I learned just came into the public domain. If that means anything to you, it was published in 1922, I think, yes, and they're the Nick Adams stories. So the stories are quite interrelated, but they're short, and most of them can stand on their own as short stories. So it is 150 pages of, it's good to like taste a writer like Ernest Hemingway and make up your own mind. I think that his notions of masculinity and femininity are no longer that relevant for the world that we live in. Nonetheless, he was a literary stylist that like deserves to be considered before he is rejected. I would say that with a lot of writers, a lot of like hyper masculine writers who have they're just antiquated notions of gender dynamics and power. They're still interesting narrative landscapes though, so I wouldn't discount Hemingway. I would certainly read something like this and then form an opinion, based on reading the work that you could use to characterize his value to the contemporary reader. The last thing that I have to present is the very first, no, it's the most recent. It's the thing. I just finished this 2 days ago. It was published maybe a month and a half ago. Mr. George Saunders is, in my opinion, the most important writer, certainly of short stories, and maybe just writer in English that's currently writing. And he did what he does in these short stories, which is, redefine the genre, push the boundaries of what we understand as, the words. It's tough to really find the right words. It's like a tremendous heart. There's a tremendous heart always, and empathy for different human experiences and perspectives in these books, but in the short stories. But there's so much tension from line to line, and the amount of craft and revision that goes into George Saunders' stories. If you've ever heard him talk about writing and his process, it's pretty jaw-dropping, really, when you think about, sometimes he talks about revising short stories, and I'll have a draft, and you say, well, how many drafts did you do? 1,000, and different. Usually he will, towards the end of the process is where he does his most serious cutting, so you find these stories that are just stripped down to the bone with nothing that's like flashy or artistic other than the voices of the characters, which are incredibly realized and raw, and then the topics that the stories address thematically always center around existence and forgiveness and empathy, and these stories are very rich. So I would love to hear any questions, or I would always ready for an invitation to talk about George Saunders' work, because he is one of my current literary heroes for sure. And that is 7 short reads. You can read them in a rainy afternoon, and give the video a like if you made it to the end. And if you want more videos like this, let me know, because it helps me with my process, and when I figure out what to do with my time, as I have to enjoy here on planet Earth.